in the gleaming heart of Dubai's Marina district, where luxury villas tower over manicured gardens and the scent of jasmine floats through the air, Layla Hassan appeared to have it all. 32, poised and beautiful, she had been married to Karim Hassan, a man 15 years her senior, for nearly a decade. He was a real estate mogul, quiet, calculating, generous when it mattered, and respected in both business and society. Their villa boasted gold-plated fixtures, an infinity pool, and an imported Italian chef who visited twice a week. To the outside world, Layla was the envy of her peers, graceful, pampered, and untouchable. But inside the glass walls of her immaculate home, Layla lived like a beautiful statue in a museum, admired but untouched. Karim was rarely home. He traveled often, chasing deals in Doha, Riyadh, and occasionally London. Even when he was home, he barely spoke unless it involved formal dinners or appearances. Conversations were brief. Affection was colder than the marbled floors she walked on. He provided everything but never asked her what she wanted. Not really. At first, Layla told herself it was the price of comfort, of status. But as the years passed, her reflection in the mirror began to change. Not physically. No, she was still stunning. But there was an emptiness behind her eyes. The sparkle that once lit up the room when Karim walked in had long since dimmed. The breaking point came quietly. It was a Sunday afternoon. Layla was seated at the breakfast table, dressed in soft silk, sipping her second espresso while flipping through a fashion magazine. Karim, freshly returned from a trip to Oman, scrolled through his phone as he ate in silence. "I was thinking of joining a gym," she said casually, glancing up from her page. He didn't look up. "What for?" "Just to stay active. I've been feeling tired lately." He sipped his green tea. "We have a treadmill here." Layla forced a smile. "I'd like the routine, maybe classes, something with people." Karim raised a brow. "As long as it doesn't interfere with the charity gala on Thursday." He never asked why she was tired, never looked at her long enough to notice the sadness beneath the surface. That evening, Layla booked a premium membership at Eclipse Elite Fitness, an upscale gym nestled near Jumeirah Beach, known for private studios and clientele that preferred discretion over crowds. The kind of place where the wives of diplomats, influencers, and heiresses went to pretend their lives weren't as lonely as they felt. The next morning, Layla entered the gym in sleek leggings and a designer hoodie, oversized sunglasses hiding her tired eyes. The air smelled of citrus and steel. It was quiet, polished, controlled. At the front desk, a tall woman greeted her politely and handed her a welcome packet. "You're scheduled with Rami this week, one-on-one private strength and conditioning sessions. He's our best." Layla offered a polite smile. "Thanks." 10 minutes later, he walked in. Rami Khalid, 28, was a contrast to the world Layla inhabited. Tall, sculpted, sun-kissed, and confident in a way that didn't try too hard. His black t-shirt clung to his toned body. His smile was genuine, his handshake firm, and his energy easy, like he had nothing to prove. "Mrs. Hassan," he said warmly. "Layla, please." "Layla," he repeated as though savoring the name. "You're in good hands." They began with stretches. He asked about her goals, posture, lifestyle. His hands briefly touched her shoulders, her back, correcting alignment, guiding her through form. Layla felt a tingle she hadn't felt in years, not just from touch, but from attention. It wasn't that he was flirtatious, at least not openly, but his tone was warm, playful, curious. He listened, laughed lightly when she struggled with reps, encouraged her when she succeeded. "I'm guessing you haven't done this in a while," he said, teasing after her first round of squats. "Not since university," she admitted, smiling. "And back then, I mostly just drank coffee and watched other people work out." He laughed. "We'll get you back into form in no time." By the end of the session, Layla was flushed, not from exertion but from something else, a rush she hadn't expected. As she stepped into her car, she looked back through the tinted window at Rami wiping down a bench, laughing with another client. She didn't realize it yet, but the first crack had already formed. Not in her marriage, in her restraint. For the next few weeks, Layla's routine shifted in ways that felt subtle to others, but profound to her. She began waking up earlier, her phone already in hand before the morning light touched the marble floors of her villa. She'd check for a message. Sometimes Rami would send a casual reminder. "Today we're doing core, get ready to suffer grinning face with sweat." Other times, nothing at all, and still she'd check. Twice. Her sessions at Eclipse Elite became the highlight of her days. 3 times a week, she walked into the gym with her oversized shades, heart already beating faster, not from exercise but anticipation. Rami was always there, his smile unreasonably warm, his banter always ready. And Layla? She played the role of the curious client with just a touch of mischief. One morning, as she struggled through planks, Raymai knelt beside her, correcting her form. His hand brushed her hip. "Your core's stronger than you think," he said. Layla, breathing hard, smirked. "That's what I tell myself every time I avoid dessert." Raymai chuckled. "Avoiding dessert, now that's tragic." They laughed. It was harmless. Or so she told herself. That night, Karim returned home from a 3-day trip to Bahrain. As always, the house had been prepared. Dinner was set. Layla wore the pearl earrings he liked. They sat in silence, cutlery clicking softly against fine china. "How was your trip?" she asked. "Productive," he said. "We closed the Marina Towers deal." Layla nodded. "That's good." He looked up briefly. "You seem distracted lately." She sipped her water. "Just tired. The workouts are catching up with me." "You don't have to go if it's exhausting you." She hesitated. "No, I like it." He said nothing more. No further questions, no curiosity. The next day, Layla entered the gym and found Raymai with another client, a young Russian model who seemed overly enthusiastic in her lunges. Layla turned away before the bitterness could show. Later, during their session, she mentioned it with a light laugh. "That girl was practically throwing herself at you." Raymai wiped his brow and grinned. "She tries, not my type." Layla raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what is your type?" He looked at her, held her gaze just long enough for the air to tighten. "Smart, mysterious, out of reach." Layla's smile faltered. They didn't speak for a few seconds as she adjusted the weights. Her hands trembled slightly. "Sounds dangerous," she whispered. Raymai's voice softened. "Sometimes the best things are." From then on, things shifted. Raymai began texting her outside of gym hours, casual at first. Memes, jokes about her squat form, then questions. "What's your favorite movie? You always this quiet around people. Bet your husband doesn't notice when you change your nail color." Layla answered, slowly at first, then with more vulnerability than she expected. "No, he doesn't." One night, she found herself rereading their chat history in bed while Karim showered in the next room. The sound of water masked the sound of her laugh. When Karim walked out, towel around his waist, she quickly locked her screen. "Something funny?" he asked. She looked up and smiled. "Just a friend's message." Karim stared at her for a moment, then said nothing. The next week, Raymai suggested a change of scenery. "There's a rooftop yoga studio we sometimes rent for VIP clients. Better view, more privacy," he said, handing her a card with an address scribbled on the back. Layla's heart thumped. Privacy. Raymai smiled. "Some clients don't like the eyes here, you know how Dubai is." She took the card. It wasn't just about workouts anymore. She knew it. So did he. That Friday, Layla sat in her car parked outside the rooftop studio. It was dusk, the sky painted in dusty pink and gold. Her phone buzzed. Raymai, upstairs, doors open. She hesitated. One more step, one more crack. She pushed the door open and walked in. The rooftop studio was warm with the fading heat of the Dubai sun. It smelled of lemongrass and eucalyptus. Candles flickered near tall mirrors and soft instrumental music played through hidden speakers. The setting was serene, intimate. Layla stepped in quietly, her heels clicking on the polished wooden floor. She had swapped her usual athletic gear for something softer, a black fitted tank, loose ivory joggers, her hair tied in a sleek low bun. She looked effortlessly elegant, like she didn't try, but she had. Raymai was already inside, stretching near the center mat. "You came," he said, voice low and teasing. "You invited me," she replied, placing her phone and water bottle beside her. He walked over, close but not touching. "I wasn't sure you would." Layla's lips curved. "I wasn't sure either." For a few minutes they trained in silence. Raymai adjusted her posture, guided her breathing, corrected her movement. Every touch was charged now, longer than necessary. His fingers grazed her shoulders, lingered at her lower back, steadied her hips. Her body responded in ways she hadn't felt in years. After the third set, she sat on the mat, breathing heavily, her skin glowing with sweat. "I don't think I can move anymore," she laughed. Raymai knelt beside her close. "You're doing better than most of my clients." "You say that to all the married women you train." "Only the ones I like." There was a pause. She looked at him, he looked back. The tension hung between them like a stretched wire. Then, quietly, without planning, Layla leaned in. Their lips touched. It was a soft kiss at first, cautious, uncertain. But then he cupped her face, and she let out a shaky breath. The kiss deepened, hungry, reckless, years of restraint falling away in one heartbeat. They pulled apart, breathless. Her hands trembled. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered. "But you are," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. She stood quickly, pacing to the window. "I'm married Raymai." "I know," he said calmly. "That didn't stop you just now." She turned sharply. This was a mistake. "Then walk out." Layla hesitated. Outside, the call to prayer echoed from a distant minaret, floating over the city's skyline. The lights of Dubai began to twinkle, perfect, bright, and merciless. Inside, her heart thudded. She didn't walk out. Instead, she stepped back toward him. Later that evening, Layla sat in her car parked near the building's underground exit. Her lipstick was smudged, her pulse still high, her hands clenched tightly on the steering wheel. She had crossed the line. Not just physically, but emotionally. Raymai wasn't just a fling, there was something dangerously addictive about him. His confidence, his attention, his ability to see her, to want her. It made her feel real again. She knew it wouldn't stop here. What she didn't know was that they weren't alone that evening. In the shadows of the hallway, a janitor named Faisal had been sweeping near the side exit when he saw Layla enter the studio. He recognized her. Everyone at the gym knew who Mrs. Hassan was. A few hours later, he saw her leave again, hair tousled, eyes lowered, shirt slightly creased. He didn't think much of it at first. But the next day, when he passed Raymai in the staff room, he noticed the same crease on the same shirt. A quiet smirk on Raymai's face. And that's when Faisal pulled out his phone and began recording small things. A glance here, a whisper there. Not because he cared, but because in Dubai, secrets were currency. The days that followed unfolded like a slow-burning fuse, calm on the surface, but underneath something was shifting. Layla returned to the gym often, at first under the pretense of intense training, then for private sessions, then for no excuse at all. Raymai had become more than her escape. He was now her obsession. And while Layla tried to maintain the facade of composure at home, her husband Adil noticed the change. She laughed more, smiled at her phone, left the dinner table to take mysterious calls. Her perfume lingered on late-night clothes, and worst of all, she had stopped fearing him. Adil's control depended on her fear. Now something had cracked. One night he stood on the balcony of their penthouse, watching the skyline, a glass of scotch in hand, his jaw tight. His instincts were never wrong. His wife was hiding something. And in Dubai's tightly wound circles, secrets don't stay buried long. Meanwhile, in the staff locker room of the upscale fitness center, Faisal the janitor uploaded a short clip to a private folder on his cloud drive. In the grainy hallway footage, Layla and Raymai stood inches apart. She leaned in. Raymai touched her waist. It wasn't explicit, but it didn't need to be. In a city where reputation is everything, even shadows told stories. Faisal's fingers hovered over the send button, but he didn't send it yet. He was waiting. For leverage. For the right offer. And someone else had already begun watching. At a quiet cafe near Al Circle Avenue, Nura, Layla's childhood friend, scrolled through her Instagram feed. She paused at a photo, Layla's gym mirror selfie. She zoomed in absent-mindedly. Her thumb stopped on something faintly familiar in the reflection, a male figure behind her, partially hidden, head turned. Nura narrowed her eyes. That was not Adil. The trainer. Her stomach flipped, Layla wouldn't. But curiosity got the better of her. She messaged, "Sis, you're glowing these days, eyes, what's your secret?" Layla replied seconds later. "Just sweating out the old me winking face." Nura smirked, but her concern lingered. She knew Adil. She knew what he was capable of. On a rainy Wednesday, a rare storm clouding the desert city, Layla and Raymai met at a luxury Airbnb in Jumeirah. It was impulsive, careless. But they didn't care anymore. Raymai had begun speaking in maybes and what-ifs. Maybe we could leave. What if we started somewhere new? London, Istanbul, wherever. You're not a prisoner, Layla. But Layla knew better. She was a prisoner. And Adil wasn't a man who forgave betrayal. Still, the thought of freedom made her bold. That night, Raymai held her close and whispered, "One day he'll find out, and when he does, I'll protect you." Layla closed her eyes. She wanted to believe him. But in Dubai, wealth shields the powerful. And Adil wasn't just powerful. He was dangerous. Elsewhere in the city, Adil sat across from a private investigator. The man slid a file across the table. In it were photos. Layla entering the gym after hours. Raymai leaving the same door 20 minutes later. A candid of them near the Jumeirah Airbnb entrance. The final image was blurry, shot through a windshield in the rain. But it was enough. Adil closed the folder and lit a cigar. His voice was calm. What would you charge to make someone disappear? The tension between shadows and silence had reached its peak. Inside the glass fortress of the Al Fardan penthouse, Adil's world remained unchanged on the surface, calm, controlled, clinical. But beneath the marble floors and crystal chandeliers, a plan was forming. Cold, precise, final. Adil didn't yell. He did confront Layla. That wasn't his style. Instead, he waited. He began reshuffling business trips, purposely flying out for days, knowing Layla would take the bait. He left his calendar open, his GPS off, his temper restrained. The more freedom she felt, the closer she came to her mistake. Meanwhile, Rami was falling deeper, not just into lust, but into fantasy. He started searching property listings abroad. He asked about Layla's passport status. He even mentioned marriage, jokingly at first, but with enough weight that Layla laughed nervously and changed the subject. Layla, for all her feelings, knew the truth. This couldn't last. She wasn't ready to throw away everything for someone who didn't understand the world she lived in. The power of family name, money, fear. Still, she continued seeing him, addicted to the danger, the illusion of control. Then came the invitation. One Friday morning, Layla found a single envelope on her dressing table. Gold-trimmed, no note. Inside, 2 exclusive passes to a private yacht party. Adil's close circle, reserved guests only. The party was set for the coming Saturday, on a luxury charter anchored off the coast of the Palm. But Adil had flown to Qatar for business, according to his assistant. Layla's hands trembled. She wasn't stupid. It was bait. She knew it. And still she went. On the yacht, beneath the glow of sunset and champagne-soaked laughter, Layla clung to the rail, nervous. The guests were friendly, familiar, but watched her too closely. The crew was too alert. And when Rami finally arrived, having been invited anonymously, his confusion turned quickly to unease. "This doesn't feel right," he whispered. Layla nodded. But it was too late. By the time the sun fully dipped below the horizon, the yacht had pulled farther from the coast than permitted. Guests began to vanish below deck. The music softened. Raymai noticed a small red light blinking from a mounted security camera. Someone was recording. They were being trapped. Suddenly, a voice came through the intercom. It was Adil. Calm, cold, distant. "Enjoying your evening, my love. I hope the sea suits your new boy toy." Gasps rippled among the few remaining staff. Raymai's face drained of color. Layla's stomach turned. Adil continued. "Consider this my parting gift. The Coast Guard is on their way. Enjoy explaining yourselves. Infidelity laws are still laws." Click. Panic. Layla begged the captain to turn back. Raymai tried to call his lawyer, but the boat's signal was suddenly jammed. The engines stopped. An hour passed before lights appeared on the horizon. Police boats, not Coast Guard. Layla and Raymai were escorted off like criminals, hands behind their backs. By midnight, Layla sat alone in an interrogation room. No handcuffs, but no dignity either. A detective slid a folder in front of her. Inside were stills from security footage. Her Ramai, the gym, the Airbnb. You've been under surveillance for months, the officer said. Adultery carries penalties in this country, especially when the husband is a man like Adil Al-Fardin. Her voice broke. He set me up. The officer looked bored. Maybe, but evidence is evidence. Ramai, meanwhile, was not so lucky. He was held in a different location. And within 48 hours, he vanished from the system entirely. No lawyer, no phone call, no bail. Just gone. 2 days after the yacht incident, Rami's body was found. Face down. In the desert. Barely recognizable. He had no ID on him, just a bloodied gym bracelet and sand-soaked sneakers. His face was battered, skull fractured. Cause of death, blunt force trauma and dehydration. The body was dumped outside Al Quadra, far from city lights. No CCTV, no witnesses. Layla was under house arrest when she got the news. A soft knock, followed by Adil's personal driver slipping her a folded news clipping. An anonymous report buried in a tabloid crime column. Unidentified body of young man found NEAR Dubai cycling track. Foul play suspected. Layla collapsed. She didn't cry, not right away. Her body just folded in on itself. She didn't need confirmation. She knew it was him. Hours later, her lawyer visited. There will be no official charges against you, he said. Adil has withdrawn his complaint. The court has wiped the incident under domestic misunderstanding. You're free. Layla blinked. What do you mean, free? But she was. She was trapped in a gilded cage. Her passport was returned, but only after she signed a non-disclosure agreement and a marital property transfer contract. She was forced to relinquish her share of Adil's assets, retain only a personal allowance, and never speak of the affair, or the incident, again. She signed, with trembling hands and Ramai's ghost hovering behind her. But questions remained. Who killed Ramai? Why wasn't there an official report? Why was the body released so quickly and cremated under the wrong name? Rumors swirled. Some said Adil hired mercenaries from neighboring countries, paid in cash and secrecy. Others believed a member of the Royal Guard was involved, one of Adil's elite security friends who owed him a favor. A third theory claimed Rami had tried to fight back, and in doing so sealed his fate. But Layla knew one thing for sure. Ramai didn't die in a fight. He was silenced, because if he had spoken about Layla, about what Adil did, Adil's reputation could have cracked. And reputation in Dubai's elite circles wasn't just status. It was power, it was protection, it was untouchable. Weeks passed. Layla faded from society. No more charity galas, no more beach selfies. Her gym membership was canceled. The driver followed her everywhere. Her phone was replaced with one monitored by Adil's IT team. She spent days staring out of the penthouse window, where the ocean met the skyline, the same place the yacht once sailed. Sometimes at night, she'd swear she still heard Ramai's laugh echo from the pool deck. But one day, she received an email from a burner address. No subject, no message. Just one attachment. A blurred still from the yacht's hidden camera. Ramai shirtless, nervous, turning to look behind him, a red light blinking. Then a second photo. Adil sitting in a surveillance van, watching live footage, grinning. Layla's blood ran cold. Someone had leaked it. Someone who wanted her to remember. Or maybe to act. That night, Layla opened a private safe her father once gave her. Inside, a U.S. passport, a second identity, and a small velvet box with a silver chain inside. Ramai had given it to her weeks before he died. She clipped it around her neck. For the first time in weeks, her breath steadied. If she couldn't get justice in Dubai, maybe she'd find it somewhere else. Layla sat at the private terminal of Dubai International Airport. Disguised, hijab drawn low, sunglasses hiding her swollen eyes. A single Louis Vuitton carry-on beside her. She wasn't fleeing. Not like a criminal. She was escaping as a survivor. Her destination, Geneva. A neutral country, no extradition treaties with Dubai on domestic civil disputes. No Adil, no shadows following her. The U.S. passport she carried wasn't fake. It was part of her dual nationality from her late mother's side. A truth she'd forgotten until her father's lawyer sent her a whisper-thin envelope days earlier with 3 words written on the back. You have options. Layla chose survival. But she didn't choose silence. By the time her flight landed in Geneva, a new burner phone buzzed in her purse. A message from an encrypted contact. The clip you saw was only half the truth. He was tortured before he was killed. Meet me tomorrow, don't bring anyone. Attached was an audio file. Her fingers shook pressing play. The tape was grainy but clear enough, Raymai screaming. Pleading. Begging to know why. A voice, Adil's voice, calm, even amused, murmured back. You wanted Layla's heart. I only wanted her to look good beside me. Now neither of us have her. Then silence. Then a crack. And the tape ended. Layla vomited in the sink. The air in the room had vanished. Her knees buckled. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she wrote 3,000 words. Every detail. Every betrayal. She attached photos, receipts, even screen captures of her medical reports from the night Adil had slapped her. Evidence that had once disappeared from the hospital database, but had now been recovered through a friend in Switzerland. She sent the entire file to a European investigative journalist known for taking down warlords and oligarchs. The next day, she met the source, an ex-housemaid named Fatima, once part of Adil's domestic staff, now seeking asylum. Fatima confirmed what Layla feared. The surveillance was constant. Raymai had been followed for weeks. The yacht incident had been a trap. And Adil had paid off multiple people, including a senior police investigator. I kept a copy of the yacht video, not for blackmail, Fatima whispered, eyes wide. For truth, for Raymai. Fatima handed over a flash drive. Layla clutched it like a prayer bead. Later that week, BBC Arabic aired a 45-minute exposé. Behind the Veil, how power and jealousy killed a gym trainer in Dubai. It didn't name Layla directly, but it showed Raymai's face. It blurred Adil's. It hinted at corruption, wealth, and suppressed justice. The story exploded. Thousands demanded an investigation. /justice for Rami trended. Old gym clients of Raymai began speaking out. Foreign diplomats began asking quiet questions in hushed corridors. Adil was silent, but Layla knew that silence wouldn't last. A week later, her Swiss hotel was broken into. No money stolen, no laptops missing. Just her notebooks and the silver chain Rami had given her. The message was clear. They could still reach her. But Layla wasn't the same woman she once was. She hired private security. She made a video, crying, honest, painful, and uploaded it anonymously to an encrypted whistleblower site. It ended with a line that chilled millions. He thought love would save me. He died for believing that, so now I'll speak for both of us. You can kill the man, but you won't kill the truth. The backlash on Adil was swift and global. His business empire faced boycotts. International investors pulled out. A UAE official quietly stepped down. Though no formal murder charges were ever filed, the public court had passed its verdict. And Layla. She didn't return to Dubai. But she didn't hide either. She became something far more dangerous than a socialite. She became a witness. 2 months later, Geneva's early winter laid a sheet of frost across the lake. Layla walked alone down Quai du Mont Blanc, wrapped in a camel coat, her breath white in the air. Behind her, a man in plain clothes watched. He wasn't paparazzi, he wasn't press. He was Adil's man. They hadn't stopped watching her. They were just more careful now. Despite the international fallout, Adil had not fallen. No trial. No arrest. But he was weakened. His travel was restricted. His name was poison in European circles. Layla knew that wouldn't satisfy the world forever. Or hers. So she worked quietly, gathering, recording, protecting. She filed a civil suit in Swiss court using evidence of financial abuse, medical assault, and emotional cruelty. It wasn't a murder charge. but it was leverage. One night a letter arrived, no sender, no postmark. Inside, a photograph. Ray Mai, lying on the yacht deck, his mouth slightly open, eyes still wide. But this time, someone else was in the background. Barely visible in shadow, but there, a third man. Layla's hands trembled. She stared harder, zoomed, cropped. Not Adil. Not one of his known guards. Someone new. Someone no one had spoken about. Had Adil not killed Raymai himself? Had he watched someone else do it? She passed the photo to a contact in investigative forensics. They enhanced it. What came back was horrifying. The man in the shadows was Detective Omar Shadid, the same officer who had closed the yacht case, the same one who said there was no foul play. This changed everything. It meant the system was complicit. And now Layla had names. So she began to speak. On record, to Al Jazeera, to The Guardian, to CNN. She didn't name Adil directly, still protected by legal threats, but she painted the picture so clearly the world filled in the blanks. The interviews went viral. Millions of women in silence began writing in support. Survivors, widows, runaways. Layla became an unwilling icon. But she carried the weight for Raymai. One quiet night, she lit a candle in a chapel above Lake Geneva. In her coat pocket was Raymai's old gym bracelet, faded, simple, cheap. She held it in her palm and whispered to the dark. You were the only one who saw me. Not as a wife, not as an ornament. Just as me. Tears slipped freely. She didn't wipe them away. The next day, Adil responded. Not publicly, but by filing an emergency gag order through his Dubai lawyers. He claimed defamation, invasion of privacy, fabricated Western conspiracy. But it was too late. The truth had outgrown him. His daughter's elite school in London expelled her. His European accounts were frozen for audit. And whispers in Abu Dhabi said the royal circles had begun to pull away. Layla had lit a fire that could not be extinguished. Still, it came at a cost. Her father's business in Lebanon was shuttered by anonymous sabotage. Her aunt in Kuwait received death threats. Her sister's visa to France was mysteriously revoked. Layla stood alone, but she no longer ran. She established a private foundation in Raymai's name, funding legal aid for abuse victims in Middle Eastern countries where silence was survival. The tagline was haunting. Some loves end in tragedy. But truth never dies quietly. The murder of Raymai wasn't solved in the courts, but it was solved in the world's eyes. Layla never remarried. She refused interviews after that year. She stopped attending conferences. But in private circles, among lawyers, survivors, whistleblowers, one name was spoken with quiet reverence. The widow of silence. And everyone knew exactly who that meant. A full year had passed since Rami's murder. Geneva was colder now. The lake often froze at its edges. The tourists were gone. And Layla had learned how to move like a ghost, quiet, calculated, invisible in plain sight. Her face was no longer in newspapers. Her name no longer echoed in newsrooms. But in the back rooms of human rights agencies and legal aid offices, she had become a legend. Not a martyr. Not a saint. Just a woman who survived the most powerful man in her world and lived to speak about it. But the silence had a cost. Sometimes Layla couldn't sleep, not because of nightmares, but because of memories. Of Raymai's laugh echoing down gym halls. Of the rooftop studio and the way he said her name. Of the heat in his palms and the promise in his voice. One day he'll find out, and when he does, I'll protect you. He said it with such certainty. And he died trying. Layla now lived in a modest but secure flat on the outskirts of Geneva. Nothing like the gold-dripped villa in Dubai. No servants, no guards, just a quiet view of a frozen park and a steady routine. She worked from home, organizing affidavits, training whistleblowers, consulting with lawyers who couldn't name her but needed her. She had become the woman behind the curtain. And yet one morning, as she stepped out onto her small balcony with her tea, she saw something that shook her. A man across the street, lean, tall, dark-haired, standing still watching her window. Her breath caught. For a split second, she thought it was Raymai. Same height, same stance, same stillness. But when she blinked, the man was gone. Her tea spilled onto the concrete. Later that week, she received an envelope, hand-delivered, no postage. Inside, a photograph of her sister sitting in a Paris cafe. And below it, a note. You spoke. Speak again and they'll listen too. There was no signature, but Layla didn't need one. Adil's reach hadn't ended. Even with his empire cracking, his ego refused to surrender. He wanted control, and now he wanted fear again. Layla took the photo and burned it in her sink. But her hands shook for hours. Not from fear, but rage. She contacted Interpol through her lawyer, not with a request for protection, but with a folder of documents. Inside, a new, previously unreleased recording of Adil bragging during a charity gala about handling messy affairs. Bank transfers to shell companies in Qatar and Jordan, marked with vague, consulting notes, but traced to known mercenary handlers. One unfiled police complaint, signed by a domestic worker who disappeared weeks after the yacht incident. She had waited a year to act. Now she knew her enemy would never stop unless cornered. The dossier was explosive. Interpol opened a file. Adil was quietly placed on a watch list. The UAE denied involvement. But journalists picked up the scent again. The headlines returned. Widow of silence breaks her vow. Dubai billionaire's crimes resurface after new evidence. Justice for Raymai, will there ever be a trial? Layla didn't flinch. She gave no statement. She let the evidence speak. And then came the letter that broke her. It was mailed from Lebanon. No return address. No date. Just one handwritten sentence on expensive stationery. He screamed for you until his last breath. There was no blood on the page. But Layla felt it anyway. She placed the letter in a small glass box beside Raymai's chain and bracelet. Every morning she looked at it. It reminded her that justice wasn't a courtroom. It was persistence, truth, and never letting the world forget who the real victim was. A warm breeze blew through the quiet Geneva cemetery. The snow had finally melted, revealing grass, brittle and yellow from months of cold. Layla stood beside a simple headstone. No marble, no inscriptions in gold. Just his name, Raymai Nassif, 1989-2024. He dared to love. She placed a single white rose at its base. No security, no cameras, no funeral crowd. Just her and the wind, and the truth that had chased her for nearly 2 years. In the months following her leak to Interpol, the ripple became a wave. Adil's name was blacklisted by several European financial institutions. His assets in France and Germany were quietly frozen. His shell companies were exposed in a global investigative piece that aired on BBC and CNN. He issued a public statement through his lawyers. Baseless, malicious, fabricated by a mentally unstable woman seeking attention. But the world had changed. Layla had changed it. The real turn came when 2 former guards from Adil's estate sought asylum in the Netherlands. They confirmed everything. The gym surveillance footage had been erased on Adil's orders. Raymai's name had been placed on a no-exit list before his death. Layla had been sedated twice before relocation to Geneva. It was no longer a rumor. It was no longer just her word. It was a case file, one that may never go to court, but one that could never again be buried. She started speaking carefully and with protection. First to a university in Copenhagen, then at a women's rights panel in Berlin. Eventually, the UN Human Rights Council invited her to testify on abuse within elite, closed societies. She didn't mention Adil by name. She didn't need to. Her words did the damage. Love shouldn't cost your life, and silence should never be the price of survival. The room went still. The delegates applauded for 2 full minutes. In Dubai, Layla's name was officially erased from her family's registry. Her assets seized, her photos removed from every family archive. She was, in the eyes of that world, a ghost. But she had been one before. This time she chose it. One day, while sipping tea on her balcony, she received a package. No note, no sender, just a leather-bound book. Inside, Raymai's training journal. Photos of their sessions. A pressed jasmine flower tucked between pages. Her heart stopped. The package had a Beirut return address. She didn't open a case. She didn't tell a soul. She just held it for hours. And then, for the first time in a long time, she wept. A year later, Layla opened a small nonprofit in Switzerland. Its name, the Raymai Foundation for Silent Victims. They offered shelter, legal aid, mental health support, particularly for women fleeing elite domestic abuse in Gulf nations. She worked quietly, tirelessly, and on the Foundation's website under Founder's Message, it simply read, "I lost him to power, but in his name I give others power back." And in the quiet corners of the world, where gym trainers fall in love with the wrong people, where wives are owned like property, where love costs lives, Layla's voice is still whispered. Not as scandal, but as survival. Not as betrayal, but as truth.